Even if you've never painted before, you can paint this Sturt Desert Pea. Maybe you're worried that you won't be good or you're not creative enough, and I'm here to reassure you don't need experience and you're definitely creative enough. I'm going to show you some simple brush strokes so you can paint your own Sturt Desert Pea just like this, and I'll link some more tutorials along the way in case you get stuck. Begin with the very tip of your brush on the page and push down as you go to make the line thicker, creating a bit of a C shape. This is a C curve. And watch as I do it again and see how I lifted my brush up really slowly at the end to create a point. I'm going to repeat this with a backwards C curve right up close to the first one. And so I'm using the tip of the brush, pushing down with the belly of the brush and lifting back up again. And to create that C-ish shape, I rotate my hand as I'm going. I know it might sound a little bit complicated and feel weird at first, but with practice it gets easier, I promise. It was tricky for me at first too, and I just practiced with my brush strokes over and over again while I watched TV, and I got the hang of it eventually. Repeat this process below your first petal, and if you can, just make this petal a little bit smaller than the first one. Notice that my petals aren't symmetrical at all, and they're completely imperfect, but nothing in nature is perfect anyway, so it doesn't matter. Now for our side-on petals, we're repeating that same process, but only one C curve for each petal. So watch what I mean. Starting on the right-hand side, for no particular reason, I'm putting one C curve on the top and one down the bottom to give the impression that we're looking at those petals side-on. And you'll see they're basically the same C shapes that we started with earlier. And we'll repeat this on the other side with some backwards C shapes. Now I'm going to use some green paint for the stems, and I've got a kind of olivish green mixed up already, but if your green's too bright, I'll show you how to make it more earthy like mine. So if you've got a bright green like this, you'll just want to add a little bit of red, just a touch to warm it up. And I'll link another video all about this for you too. To create the stems, I'm using the very tip of my brush to create some thin lines. And really just drawing with the brush, don't worry if it's wobbly or your lines get thin and thick or you smudge or anything else like that, just roll with it. So my stems have all come down to a point, and then I'm adding another stem with some leaves. The leaves are a similar brushstroke to the C curves we painted earlier, but you don't want to rotate your hand as you go, just keep going in a straight line. And to create the curved end of your leaf instead of a point, when you lift up the brush at the end to finish the leaf, just lift it up quite quickly and don't worry about creating the point. So my biggest tip is stop worrying about making it perfect, just work nice and quickly and don't worry about the mess. Pop these leaves all the way down the stem towards the middle. For this next part, wait until your red petals are dry or the paint will bleed. I'm going to use some very dark brown to paint the middle of the flower. So I'm using the same C-curve brush strokes as earlier, but making them less pointed, a bit like our leaves. So begin with the tip of your brush, roughly a quarter of the way up your bottom petal, and paint a mini brown C-curve that finishes around a quarter of the way down the bottom petal. And if these instructions sound confusing, they do to me as well, then just watch what I'm doing and you'll see what I mean. So repeat this for each flower, and for the middle flower, paint two C curves mirroring each other, just like we did earlier with the petals, because the flower is facing the viewer. Now remember, don't worry if your art is messy or wobbly or smudged. This is meant to be fun, and it's more about the process and having fun than it is actually about painting anything beautiful. And never forget that behind every YouTube tutorial, there are millions of practice paintings behind the scenes. And on that note, here's another video I reckon you'll love. Tap to watch it now.